replays. We're officially live right now, and sorry for the delay, but as always, Trevor saves the day by playing one of our replays. Hopefully, you like the show. That's actually last week's show that was just replaying, talking about different positives and negatives that would affect real estate that is outside of the actual home and property itself. But that being said, welcome, good evening, and I'm glad I'm actually here, if not in time, at least within the time, because the traffic tonight was murderous. It was to the point where I didn't know if I was going to get here by 7. That's how bad it was today. But it's one of those things that we got to live with. That's part of being in New York. You know, then doesn't matter where we are anymore, whether we're in the city, whether we're on the island, Suffolk, Nassau, it doesn't matter. The traffic is becoming pretty much of a difficulty for everybody. And add on the holiday season and more cars on the roads, just making it worse. But I will say I am very thankful for the weather today. It was a beautiful day, and one of the few that I think we're going to actually have in December. You know, it's been pretty nasty on and off the past few weeks. So to have a nice, clean, clear day like we did today, it's great. It actually makes me a lot more productive, to be honest with you, because it's been tough doing showings on houses and walking through properties and that kind of stuff with all the wet weather that we've had. And that being said, if you'd like to join the conversation, if you'd like to call into the show, have your different insights or questions about real estate, you could feel free to call in at 516-623-1240. Again, the number is 516-623-1240. You could always comment on Facebook as well. Twitter, Instagram, everybody knows the handles, so I could definitely be able to reply to them instantaneously as they come. And like I said, it was a crazy day. I'm still actually catching my breath as we're speaking right now. Hopefully I don't sound too out of breath while the show is going on, but let's dive right into it. Today, what I really want to talk about is a topic that a lot of people have been approaching me over the past couple weeks, and that's whether they should be putting their houses on the market now or wait. And it's not a very easy question to answer, and it's always on a case-by-case basis. And what I'll do is I'll kind of break it down as far as giving everybody a little bit of insight of what I think of when I'm actually putting my thoughts and marketing plans together for potential sellers of how the approach should be. The first thing is, what is your reason for selling your home? Why that's most important. Let's say you're in a time crunch and you're saying to yourself, well, I'm going to wait till spring and have it sold by May and I'll be out by then. It doesn't necessarily work that way. You might not have that sale done within that time period if you wait too long. Now, if you're going to do a fire sale and sell your property at a discount rate and it'll sell off very quick or overnight because of the price that you're going at. But if you want to go get a reasonable and fair market value on your house, you need to think it through and prepare. So I'll give you a perfect example. I had somebody that came to me just the other day as far as wanting to get themselves ready. They have a certain time limit that they have to sell their house by June because they have to move by June to relocate for both their work and for the school year for their kids. So they have to be out by June, but they can't leave before June. So there's a little bit of two-sided things of that are playing a role in this situation. So I took a look at the place and I evaluated, see what the condition is, if there's needed any kind of touch-ups or any kind of issues with the home that were needed to be addressed and taken care of. And for the most part, the place was in pretty good shape. It was one of these newer construction places that are going through its, I guess, second generation of owners now. It was only built about 6 years ago, so it's pretty much brand new still. And the thing is, I took a good look at the place. I'm seeing what's happening in the market. The market is in the higher price homes, not moving as quickly as it does for the lower price home. And this is obviously one of these higher price homes. So I'm thinking to myself, we need to take an approach on this house. We need not to hesitate as far as putting up on the market. We need to go aggressively in and also make sure that it's presented in the proper way. Now, the negative thing of going in on a December type of month, especially if you're brand new to the market, is if you don't catch it in the first 2 weeks, those last 2 weeks are usually killers for brand new listings as far as getting that initial attention that you'd want to get. And the first couple weeks or first 2-3 weeks of a listing are critical, and those are usually the gauges. Those are the places that those are the indicators of how this sale is going to go. And if you have that house on the market during a week that most people are kind of checked out mentally, or they're engaged with other items or other things, because obviously if you have a ton of people that are obviously, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention Happy Hanukkah to everybody celebrating Hanukkah today. Dove right into everything else and kind of failed to say some of the important things. Hope everybody that's celebrating Hanukkah, enjoy the holiday, enjoy your time, and let me just dive right back into everything else. So if you're going to put it on basically Christmas week or New Year's week, you're kind of giving it, you're kind of not giving it a fighting chance. So in this specific house that I went and saw a few days ago, I took the approach. If you're ready to go the first 2 weeks of December, I'm all for it. Let's do it. If you're not able to get yourself ready for photos, for video, for everything that I need to do as far as print marketing, what I suggest that we do is you give me the time period to actually get your marketing together, and we launch officially as soon as the New Year's hit. New Year hits January 2nd, January 3rd, right around that period. It's critical that you time it right and you also give it the best fighting chance. Hopefully, then we're not taking into consideration the weather as well, because the weather could screw things up enormously. There could be a blizzard on January 2nd, and all of a sudden, it's going to put a halt on everything. But if you're going to take that approach where, okay, we're going to launch immediately as soon as New Year hits, then take advantage of this month. And this goes out to not only the sellers of understanding, this goes also to the brokers and to the agents. Make sure that you take full advantage of this month of almost incubation time, of prepping the sellers, helping them arrange and stage their place properly, and get it basically photo ready, show ready. So that way you could have actually all your photos done ahead of time, and you could actually have everything set in place. So once you're listed, you're ready for business. You're not even gonna lose a beat, because a lot of times you'll see these brand new listings that hit the market and there's no photos for a few days, that kind of thing. If you're in a time crunch and you're in this kind of situation, you don't have that luxury to be able to wait a few days. You want to go in and you want to go strong. The other thing is, you might actually get that person ready to go immediately on that house. Now what happens? So you can't move until June. You have to go think of alternate plans, and you have to go through a game plan with your seller. If you sell before the time period that they can move, how are they prepared to work with that? One of the solutions that I usually find is they usually do a rent back for a couple months, and the seller, the buyer would have to agree to that, where they could stay in the house for a couple months after the sale actually happens, pay a certain type of rent back to the new owner until that happens, or they're going to have to find some type of extended stay kind of a place, or if they're lucky enough to have a friend or relative that they could move in for a few days, if they, or a month, or whatever, 2 months, whatever it takes in order to get it done. The last option usually is not the easiest option, and especially if somebody has a full family, it's very tough to work that kind of option out. Usually that works best with people that have like a mom close by or that kind of thing, but it's tough. But we go through all these options, and there's always options, and there's always ways to approach it. You could always make the deal contingent to ending at a certain date, even though it's not customary and it's not a typical type of solution. In other words, if you're set to close at, let's say, May of this upcoming month, you need to be in June. You say, listen, I can't move out until June. We have to have on or about date around June 1st, or whatever the case is. And that gives you enough time, and then you have to work that out. And that always comes down to terms of price and negotiating how everything else affects it, as far as the buyer and the seller. Like a lot of times you have the buyer that has no real restrictions of how quickly they need to move in and that kind of thing, and that's usually the most ideal, but it doesn't always happen that way. But you have to think it through. You have to constantly evolve with every single offer that comes in and every single type of situation with the purchase. So you have to look at it on a case-by-case basis. The other thing is, okay, let's say you have a person with no restrictions and no time limits. You take a look at their house as an agent, or if you're selling yourself as a for sale by owner, you have to look at the house itself and say, okay, this house is worth pretty much, I don't know, $600,000. Okay, this is what the market's bearing. This is where we're factoring in. You have to look, one, at a couple outside factors that might affect the sale of your house. How much inventory is coming in place right now? Historically and typically, this time of the year, we're usually at our lowest forms of inventory in a 12-month calendar. And that's because a lot of houses are already sold. A lot of the other houses are not being put on the market yet because they're waiting for the spring season to come in. You have a lot of houses that have been taken off of the market. There's all kinds of different factors of why historically and typically this is the lowest point of inventory for a housing market. Now, you take a look at that year over year, you see how many houses are on the market today. And the funny thing is, like if you're looking at just from now, like today's point of view, there's more houses on the market today than there were a year ago, the same time of the year. So that's one indicator. So that means you're already starting at a higher inventory point. The other thing is, that more homes are going to hit the market as time goes on. Sometimes by keeping your house on the market at this point of the year, or putting it on at this point of the year, means you have less competition to work against you. And that might be a good thing, because you might have a buyer that needs to buy a house in January or February or December, and because there's no real other options at that point, and they're stuck, they have to buy something, they're going to buy. And while I'm saying that, as far as being stuck or that kind of thing, just a quick note on, there's some commercial type of situations as well that need to end up closing out by the end of the year, that kind of thing. Or you might have 1031 exchanges that are about to expire that need to have them locked in immediately. And sometimes those are cash deals that they need to be closed before the end of the year. So there are different scenarios in that, but I'm not going to really get into the commercial point of view. I'll save the commercial talk for another show, and I'll get really into all the different forms of sales and how a lot of things are being conducted in commercial these days. But just going back to the thought process of why it might be a good situation to put your house on the market at this point in time, it's because you're really competing against not that much inventory. We don't know how much more will go on, and I promise you there will be a lot more. And that you can put in writing. Remember, this year, the inventory levels will not dissipate as quickly as they have in the past. You're going to have just as many houses coming on the market as coming off, if not more. So, and there's a lot of factors that I've spoken about on this show in the past. And we're going to see a lot of that come into fruition over the next couple of months. And I stand behind my word on this for a lot of different reasons. One, the interest rates are continuing to rise. Excuse me. So somebody's buying power is going to lessen as time goes on. And as that happens, the houses are not going to go as quickly off the market, especially the ones that are asking and demanding highs of the market, whether they're going to the top of the market or sometimes exceeding what the market's bearing. Because that's what happened over the past couple of years. You have so many houses that were put on the market at a higher clip than what the market was bearing at that point, and they sold because of the low inventory. Now that the inventory is balancing out, it's not happening as quickly. And you may have homes that are needing to sit there on the market for a little while longer or a lot longer than what they did before in order to sell. And sometimes they might not achieve the price points that they want. So you have that interest rate aspect happening. Here's the other thing that's happening right now that people are not taking into consideration as much as I thought they would have. And I promise you, over the next month or two, as people are sitting down with their accountants, CPAs, and they're discussing what their taxes are and how their returns will look, they're going to have a rude awakening, because that tax effect that you're going to have that's affecting your property taxes and the state tax, all the local taxes that you're getting hit with, that cap of $10,000 is going to affect a lot of those mid-tier houses, especially with the homes and the homeowners that are actually in the process of basically breaking even. They get a check, they spend it right away because they're in your typical rat race, where they're basically working just to make their expenses. And there's not really much money left over, if any left over. And if they do have something left over, it's not significant. So in a year like this, where they might have gotten the benefit of getting a return because of overpaying taxes, because of the deductions that they used to be taking, they might not get that return anymore. Or if they're in another situation, maybe they're working on a 1099 or that kind of thing, now they might have to pay more taxes at the end of the year. And that might, be devastating for a lot of families. This doesn't really affect the higher priced homes, because usually the people purchasing the higher priced luxury homes um, are not typically in that bracket where they're going to be that severely affected by having to pay $20,000-$30,000 extra more in tax, which is not insignificant by any way. But in the big picture, for some of the people that do have that additional income and additional financial strength, it will not hurt them as much. But you'll have a lot of these middle tier families and middle tier houses that will be affected severely. And when that takes effect, you're going to have a couple of things happening. One, you're going to have people that are going to basically say, I have to sell my place. I have to go somewhere that's a little more affordable, or I might have to just start renting out because I just can't overcome the carrying costs, the mortgage, everything that's affiliated with owning this home. And it might come to the effect where that particular homeowner might be better as a renter than an owner because of the financial strength that they have or don't have at that moment. Now, you might have that effect happening, but you also may have another issue happening simultaneously. You might have other people that are going to feel that, all right, we're going to fight through this. We're going to do everything we can. And they're going to start to use debt in order to try to cover their expenses and deficits in income to loan ratios. They're going to basically try to fight it out. And some of them will, by working a little bit more, getting some more overtime in, or working another job and that kind of thing, just to cover themselves. But then you're going to have another faction of homeowners that basically are going to be struggling, and they're going to get themselves further and further and further into debt. And then when that happens, they're going to get to the point where they're not going to be able to cover their mortgage. They're not going to be able to cover their insurance. They're not going to be able to cover their property taxes. They're not going to be able to cover a lot of these expenses. And you're going to have a situation where a lot of these homes may end up turning into potential short sales, or possibly going to default and maybe going to foreclosure. Now, I'm not saying this to scare everybody, but it's a reality. And if you think of it logically and you look at the big picture, it's going to happen. So that's why, that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this show. I just want to make people aware, and I want to make people understand and know what could and could not happen. Because with a trained eye and being in this business for a good amount of years, I've seen a couple cycles already go through. And right now, as we said again, we're going through another cycle. And everything's lining up towards the things that I'm predicting and things that I truly believe will happen down the line. So you have to be prepared. So if you're thinking about putting your house on the market and you're basically, you have high taxes and you're barely holding off right now at this point, and you've been just on the fence for the past couple of years, I sincerely suggest that you go and talk to your accountant, your CPA, to the person helping you with your finances, and say, can I still actually afford this house? Can I hold off? I'm thinking about selling my house. What's my best game plan? How am I going to go about doing this? I know that I went off a little bit off the rails as far as the approach I'm taking right now, because the premise of what we're talking about is whether you should put your house on the market or not. But because I dove into that and I hit a little bit on that topic, I think it's important that I just emphasize and really help have this sink into a lot of people's heads, that look at it very seriously, and the sooner you look at it, the better, because you could have a problem down the line, And the information's out there. Everything that's passed has been passed on to us, and it's our responsibility and ourselves to be able to make the right moves and to take the right measures as far as how to approach things going forward. So, all right, enough doom and gloom and scaring people as far as everybody's going to get foreclosed and lose their house and that kind of thing, because that's not what I'm saying. It's just, it will happen to a good percentage of houses, and a much higher percentage of houses in comparison to the past couple of years. So going back to the original premise, some of these houses that are going to be under this gun and this situation are going to actually hit the market in one shape or another. So what's that going to do? That's going to increase the inventory levels. And now a lot of these houses that are in distressed kind of shape are going to be at a lower price, which will affect the houses that don't have any distressed kind of situations happening with them, that are market value, that are a true market value, and make it a much more difficult task for them to sell as quickly as possible or at the numbers that they're looking for. So be very careful of how you think it through as far as how quickly you want to go on the market and how you want to approach this. And I strongly suggest that if you're thinking about it, to speak to a couple of people, the couple professionals in their fields, in your area, just to make sure that you're at least hearing the right things. And there has to be some kind of logic. If I'm telling you, put your house on the market right now, I have to have a logical reason why I'm telling you to do this, not just to put it on there so I could get another listing and put it on the market and say, okay, I have more listings on the market, because that's not the way I operate. There are a lot of realtors that do operate that way. It's just not the way I operate, and I don't think it's the right way to operate, by just flooding the market with inventory just to say that you have it. It makes no sense. I'd rather sell them as fast as I get them. And if I'm putting a house on the market, it has to be a reason. So you want to make sure that you're doing the right kind of research and asking the right people to help you with your specific scenario. So again, I'm going to emphasize this one more time. Most of the houses that are going to be affected by this kind of a scenario and effect will probably be the mid-tier houses, the ones that are, let's say you have a typical $500,000 neighborhood that over the past year or two have escalated to go to 550, 600, and they're still in that middle of the pack. You're going to get a lot of new inventory. And you have the one thing I didn't mention before was the late to the game people, and there's a lot of them. You have a lot of people that's seen a lot of houses around them sell at record rates, and they say, I'm going to sell my house too. This guy sold his 6 months ago for this much, and the other person sold it 8 months ago for this much. Mine's going to sell 1, 2, 3. Well, it's not going to be 1, 2, 3, and there's no more 1, 2, 3s in a lot of areas. There's some areas that are still hot, and there's sometimes outside factors that are affecting, like right now, Long Island City is off the charts because of the Amazon effect and that kind of thing, and we spoke about that in the past. And there's other areas that have other effects happening that are really causing a stir and getting people motivated to purchase and invest in those areas. But I'm talking about typical markets right now all across the island, going to the city. And for the most part, you have pretty much stabilizing and plateauing type of effects on the mid-range market. Luxury and high-end market, it's a different thing. Luxury high-end market always takes a little longer than your typical type of homes to sell. And the people that have the funds and the financial strength to purchase today will have those funds and financial strength more than likely 6 months from now, a year from now, to purchase again, in the same way. And if there's some additional expenses or additional costs or additional tax burdens, it will not, for the most part, make or break a lot of these purchasers. But there's a very big but. Those purchasers down the line will become more savvy, and they'll take their time even more to purchase the places. And if there's a little bit more inventory, because the good thing and the bad thing about the high-end luxury market, there's never a lot of inventory. I mean, there could be a lot of inventory and a lot of homes for sale or a lot of properties for sale in a specific area for that area. In other words, if you have a place that typically has, I'm just going to give a very simple round number of 10 over $5 million houses on or off in a specific market on a month-over-month basis, and all of a sudden that inventory jumps up to 15 instead of 10. Yeah, you got those extra 5 houses as options, but it's not going to go from 10 to 100. It's just, it's just a different market. It's a different type of mindset from the sellers, the owners, the buyers on those type of houses. So yeah, those are affected in a much different way. But going back to the stuff that we were talking about that's going to be the most affected is that mid-range market. So my personal advice, going back and recapping everything that I just kind of rambled on about, is if you are going to be contemplating putting your house on the market over the next few months, have the conversation today, not yesterday. I mean, have your conversation today, not in a week or so, not next year. Have the conversation today with somebody that knows what we're talking about this market, and help you understand how to move forward and how to get this place sold as quickly as possible before this market gets flooded. And it will. I promise you it will. Those mid-range houses, there's a lot of them out there. And there's a lot of those flips that are in rehab right now that are going to hit the area. Now, I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of brokers that are going to call and send me hate mail and that kind of thing. Why are you saying these kind of things? Because it's the truth. There's no way around it. It's really evident, and anybody that knows anything about this business sees it right in front of their face. And if you don't want to accept it, then you're in denial. It's just the way it is. Now, can we continue to plateau and go the way we're going, where basically everything is going even keel? Yeah, everything could go that way too as well. But it doesn't mean that things are going to sell any quicker. So if you have a predetermined time that you have to sell your house by, don't wait until March, April, May. I think that's a major mistake. The latest you should wait until is maybe February before you get yourself launched on the market. But I'd get a jump on everybody else and put it on the market. Now, I'm saying this, and I'm sure other people are listening, that they're going to put their house on the market just as quickly because of what I'm saying. Maybe we'll flood the market quicker because more people are taking my advice. I bet you a lot of people won't take my advice, and they're going to take their time and go by the conventional, put them on springtime. the seasons as we knew them in real estate are not what they used to be. The past few years, I've sold just as many houses in December that I have in August. It's just the way it is. Sure, the buyer pool is at its greatest during the spring, summer months, but the houses are selling just as quickly, and just as many are selling on a month-to-month basis. And if I had to say the slowest month of the year, probably is end of January, beginning of December, to be honest with you. I mean, the end of January, beginning of February, just typically. But even then, there's still deals being done. Real estate is a very different business of what it used to be. And everybody needs to start adapting to the unconventional type of to start doing the unconventional type of acts towards selling their places in comparison to what they did before. I remember when I first started, people would come and say, "Oh, I want to put my house on the market." They would come to you in December, and half the brokers would say, "Okay, all right, we're gonna put it on the market, but you know what? You should wait until March, April. That's the time of the year to put it in." I never understood that, to be quite honest with you. Never understood it, unless there was a specific reason why. And here's a really good reason why you would wait. Let's say you have a property that looks absolutely awful in the winter. Awful. And I don't mean by just snow on the lawn and that kind of thing. Because, all right, that's what the season is. And you know what? Worst case scenario, you get pictures of the place and you have a couple that have snow in it and it hasn't sold by the spring. Just take a few more exterior shots of the outside and give it some new life and refresh the pictures. That's not a big deal. People know we're in New York. It snows. So the house went on the market. It was snowing the day we took the pictures. There might be snow on the ground for the whole month. No big deal. But if the house actually legitimately looks awful, or if it has major defects where you have a sloped driveway where it's going through an incline or a decline, and it keeps icing, and cars can't get up and down the driveway because it's too slippery, or there's other effects that are causing potential hazards, walking wise, or whatever the case is, or for some reason there might not be any leaks in the house, but for some reason your house, because of the angle and the way the weather hits it and that kind of thing, you have huge icicles going all through the property and that kind of thing. These are things that could affect your home because it gives a very negative look to the place, and it starts getting people thinking differently. There's a lot of red flags in the mix. There's so much that you have to take into consideration when you have situations like that. So that's an issue. Let's say you have a house that's poorly insulated. Really insulated. You go inside, it's just as cold as the house when you're inside than when you're outside. You think that's funny, right? So I'm sure you've been into plenty of houses like that. Maybe you wait till it gets a little warmer. The heat might be operating, but you're losing heat left and right. I'm not saying that you try to deceive anybody, but at the same time, the insulation is the insulation. And if a home inspector is going to come there after accepted offer to check it out, they should check how well insulated the house is, if it's got thermal pane windows or whatever the case is. But if it doesn't, and you're out on the market in the middle of January, it's freezing, and you're breathing and you see mist coming out of your mouth while you're inside the house, that's not a great scenario. Maybe you should wait until March at least, or April, to put that house on the market, because at least you'll be showing it in its best. You know, there's a lot of different factors that you need to take into consideration. Let's say you're a demolition site that's basically halfway done as far as constructing a new home, or the house has been really newly construction, but the landscaping hasn't really been done or anything yet. And there's still a lot of odds and ends. Maybe you should wait until the weather gets a little better so you can actually do the proper landscaping to the property and people could see the house in its true essence and what it's supposed to really look like, and in comparison to possible renderings or imagination. Don't ever rely on people's imagination. If you have a situation where something's going to be completed and you have a little bit of time ahead of you before that completion happens, I suggest always getting renderings, whether you're a seller, developer, builder, etc., or if you're the agent representing the place, always get renderings of what the projected look will look like a place. I don't care if they're hand drawn, if they're digitally drawn. Give a visual to the people to understand what it's supposed to look like. Because if you're relying on their imagination and only on their imagination, you're going to have a big issue. It looks like I'm running out of. Oh, we got 5 more minutes. All right, perfect. So I got 5 more minutes to keep ranting on the same topic. So if you have a place that basically has those issues, you definitely want to wait until later on to put it on the market. As far as any other factors that could possibly affect you is seasonal traffic patterns. If you're in an area that's more central and there's a lot more traffic congestion happening during the holiday seasons, during the winter season, for one reason or another, and traffic sometimes has its reasons for being more congested and less congested at certain times of the year. And for instance, let's say the winter months are that time where it's more congested, then you should wait. Then you should definitely wait. And again, I'm not saying this to put the wool over anybody's eyes. I'm not saying it because everybody could do their research and everybody could look into everything that's happening around that place as far as a buyer or a savvy investor and that kind of thing. But you always want to show your home at its best possible light. And you want to make sure that you're giving it a proper chance and a fighting chance to be sold properly. And if you're unveiling a brand new home for sale, and whether it's a new construction, old construction, reno, house that needed update, whatever the case is, you're unveiling it for the first time, you want to give it a solid chance to get what it needs to get. And if you're going to be in the position where you're going to put it on the winter, you're going to have the less competition, the way I said before. You're really going to at least give yourself an opportunity to be seen by whatever buyer pool is out there. Because obviously the buyer pool is not as plentiful as it is in the summer and the spring. But I will say this. The buyers that are out there in the freezing cold and trekking through the snow and the harsh weather are legitimate buyers that have real intent on purchasing or a real need to purchase, and they're serious. And that's huge because you might be getting less people and less traffic going in and out of that property or home, but I promise you, you're getting better quality potential purchasers or buyers coming in to that home at that time. I promise you, because people during the summer, during the spring, might be walking around, curious, to take drives around. Oh, let's go see houses. Let's go get ideas what to do at our house. I'm thinking about doing some kind of upgrade, some kind of fix at my house. Let's see what these people have done. Let's go get some ideas. And you get window shoppers and that kind of thing. You don't have that many window shoppers going into 10-degree weather or when there's a blizzard outside. I promise you, there's not. You know, you might get a couple crazy people out there that are into that, but not as many. And then, you know, again, we don't take months off. As professionals, we don't. We sell all year round, 12 months a year. You know, if I had a 13-month, I'd be selling in a 13-month. So, you know, again, I didn't give a definitive answer whether you should or shouldn't put your house on the market in the winter or this time period. But a lot of the stuff is indicating that there should be no real hesitance to put it this time of the year. And there actually should be a little bit more aggression as far as putting this time of year. You kind of want to go against the trends and against the herds. And the herd mentality is always waiting till spring. Be proactive and get a jump ahead against everybody else. That's the best way to go about it. And the other, yeah, again, unless you have specific reasons why you can't put it on the market, you know, it's just the way it is. And so now I think we're actually officially out of time because now we're at 7:05. Trevor was gracious enough of allowing me to steal 5 minutes away from the next show. And sorry to the next show, whoever it is, and who is the next show now. But thank you again for listening. Have a great evening. Have a great night. Have a great week. And I will see you again this time again next Monday, hopefully on time between 6 to 7 p.m. on the Real Estate Plate. Thank you and have a great night.